there it is. Beautiful Paul McCartney bass line. We're playing 8 Days a Week by the Beatles, and this is one of my favorite tunes because, one, it shows you that you can play a walking bass line and it doesn't have to be in a jazz song. If you don't want to play jazz but you want to play walking bass, you can find these bass lines in pop tunes, such as this one. Two, it's a great use of realizing, like, yeah, Paul McCartney used really sophisticated, great musical choices. We'll be able to see some triads. We'll be able to follow a chord progression. We'll get into the music theory element of it. And it's awesome for starting to understand other shapes on our fretboard. So if you want to get tab notation or anything for this particular video and all the others on my channel, head over to my Patreon page. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support there, so head over there, grab some goodies, or check out ryanmedora.com for even more fun things. But let's talk a little bit about this particular bass line. So this song is in the key of D, and we're going to do a couple things in this lesson. We're going to, one, play through our D major scale and start to perceive some cool different scale patterns for it. Two, we're going to figure out our chord progression to this verse of 8 Days a Week, and then learn how to play through that using triads to craft this perfect walking bass line that Paul McCartney has. So there's a lot of stuff to do. Let's break it down. Let's dig in. As I mentioned before, we are in the key of D, and so we're going to start by just playing our the D major scale just to acclimate to the key. So I'm going to find my D here on the 5th fret of my A string, and I'm going to play just a good old D major scale for you. Now, the interesting thing about this is if you kind of think about, like, oh, well, I saw you play the bass line earlier in the video and you didn't really live in this part of the neck, you were correct. We're actually going to take the same scale but start to perceive our intervals lower, meaning if you were to think about kind of playing up the scale and then starting here and playing down from the octave, kind of like 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do the same thing, but we're now going to shift our root note, put our pinky there, and then kind of find our lower scale. So a lot of times when we practice scales, we usually go just like ascending and maybe descending, but we kind of don't necessarily see the intervals the same way as we move down. So this is a great practice for that, where we kind of start at the octave, so to say, and think 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And we have to play our D here to kind of hit our root note again, unless you're playing a 5-string bass. If you're playing a 5-string bass, you're going to have a D right here on the 3rd fret of your B string. But for those of us keeping it classic, going with the 4 strings, we're going to go D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, and then we can return to this D right here to finish up the scale and have it resolve. So this is a really great thing in terms of starting to see our intervals and our shapes lower. You know, you can play a root. Our 5th is going to be here. We're going to come back to the root. We could play our 3rd. Hey, we're already starting to outline some triad notes. And so we're going to kind of dig into that. But getting comfortable perceiving our scales as they descend is really, really important. And we're going to use that primarily as we build this bass line. So our song, as I mentioned, is going to be in the key of D, so we're mostly going to stick to these notes. Now, because we're playing a Beatles song, and the Beatles didn't always play by the classic diatonic rules, they kind of did some interesting things. We are going to have one note that lives outside of our scale, but we'll get there in a second. But to begin our bass line, what we want to do is realize that because we're playing a walking line, there are going to be a couple things that kind of signify what this bass line is. One, we're going to have this quarter note feel. So bum, 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 even quarter notes. 2, we're going to use our chord progression and outline our triads to kind of express the chord. And then 3, we might throw in another note here and there just for funsies, but it will still be in our key and help kind of move the line along. So we're going to think about our chord progression. In this verse part, we're going to have a 4-chord chord progression, or a 4-bar chord progression. We're going to start on D major, which is our 1 chord. Then we're going to go to E, our 2 chord. And if we were playing by the rules, we would be playing an E minor chord if we were to kind of harmonize the major scale. But because we're playing a Beatles song, they're going to be a little special and do something awesome. They're going to play that E as a major chord. So we're going to go D major, E major, Then we're going to go to G, which is our fourth scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can call it our 4 chord. And then we're going to go and return to D. So if you think about this as a 4-bar phrase, it's going to go D, E, G, and then back to D. Those are going to be our root notes. Now, if we were to think about that and kind of sing the song to our head, we'd be going like, ooh, I need your love, babe. Yes, I know it's true. We can already kind of hear how the melody works over just the root notes. So now let's see if we can turn that into a walking bass line by learning our triads and applying them. So we're going to start here with our D, and we want to play a major triad. So normally we'd be playing our root third, fifth, but because we're going to find descending intervals, we're going to look for our root D. Our third is going to be F sharp. We're going to find it down here. And then our fifth, which is going to be A, we can play here or here. So now our triad shape is going to look like this. Root, third, fifth. You see how we're kind of flipping it around, finding our descending intervals? Root, third, fifth, or D, F sharp, A. And one thing that we can do to kind of like add a little bit of just a little extra note for fun, a kind of way to make the chord work over 4 beats, because we only have 3 notes in our triad. We want to play 4 beats in a bar. We're going to add our 6th. So if we think like 8, 7, 6, scale degree 6 is going to be the B. So right now our notes, we're going to have D, F sharp, A, B, and we're just going to flip that sucker around. We're going to start with our D, and then we're going to go B, A, F sharp, or 1, 6, 5, 3. Got a 4-fret span move here, so you use your pinky, index, you should be playing all the notes on the 5th fret, 2nd fret, 5th fret, 2nd fret. And we already have the first, expression of the chord in our chord progression. And because our chord progression is 4 bars and the first bar and the 4th bar are both Ds, we're going to use the same exact pattern. So we're already like halfway through our bass line, which is pretty cool. So we're going to start with this. Now we're going to arrive at our E chord, and now we're playing an E major chord. So to build that triad, we're going to go E, G sharp, B as our root third, fifth. Now you may say, but Ryan, there is no G sharp in a D major scale. And I will say, I know, it's because the Beatles are special. And they did some cool things, and they would sometimes play with chord quality, meaning that if normally we're in the key of D, the 2 chord, which would be the E, would be minor. The Beatles were like, but what if we made it major and wrote a cool melody to it? And that's exactly what they did. So in this situation, because we're playing an E major chord, that G has to be a G sharp to make that major third. You can kind of hear do, re, mi. We're going to have that G sharp as our major third to make that 2 chord major. So that's going to be our E chord, or the 2nd chord of our chord progression. So to begin our line, we have our D, then we go to our E chord, and I'm just going to play that root third, fifth, third. So root third, fifth, third, or E, G sharp, B, G sharp. And now we have that 2nd bar of our walking bass line. Now we need our 3rd bar of the walking bass line, which is going to be a G major chord. G is our 4 chord in this case. And we're going to start that here. So in this song, we go from playing a G sharp to playing a G. That's some cool voice leading. And we're going to go root third, fifth, third again on this G. So we're going to play G the root, B the 3rd, and then D is our 5th, and then return to B the 3rd. And there we go. And then we return to D, and we're going to play that the same way we did in the first bar. And there we have our 4-bar phrase. So if we put it all together, we have our D, E, G, return to D. And that is how we play through the verse chord progression of this song. It's pretty cool. We just repeat it. So if we want to do it again all at once, Pretty cool. Now that is our main walking bass part of the song. We do break away from that when it goes to the like hold me, love me part. And when we do that, we're just really going to play the root notes of our chord progression. We're going to go B, G, B, E. Or you can think about it number-wise, 6, 4, 6, 2, and then we're going to return to our pattern that walks. And they're going to be singing 8 days a week. And so that is how you play this tune. There is going to be one more section, kind of like a bridge thing, which I'll let you figure out on your own for now. But this is going to be a great way for you to get started when it comes to at least like getting a good portion of the song down, understanding how it is a walking bass line, starting to see those triad shapes. And it's just a really great lesson in terms of applying, you know, shapes and music theory to a song and seeing it all work together. So I hope you dug this. If you want to get tab notation, anything like that, please head over to my Patreon page or check out my website, ryanmadura.com, for plenty of other goodies. And have a great day. Happy practicing. Hope you get to practice 8 days a week.